At this time, I'd like to invite Mr. Peter Van Prague to say a few words.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Today, 300 participants from over 60 countries are in Halifax to have a real conversation about international security and the challenges facing our nations now and into 2016. 7 decades ago, Paris was liberated from Nazi tyranny. 7 days ago, Paris was attacked by a new group of tyrants. We meet today in the shadow of that tragedy. Last week's attack on Paris will take all of us, in our different ways, time to heal. I want to take an opportunity to thank the Government of Canada, the Department of National Defence, and the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency, ACOA, for their enthusiastic support. Canada has a new government, a new Minister of National Defence, and I am proud to welcome Minister of Defence Sajjan, who will be the host for this year's Halifax International Security Forum.
Well, thank you for having me. It's truly a privilege and an honor to be here and so early in my tenure. We face challenging times, as most recently in the Paris attacks, and even most recently as yesterday as the attacks in Mali. I want to be able to first of all thank Peter and his team for putting together a world-class conference, bringing in an international people together collectively, so that we can have a global conversation. This forum, which I watched from afar before, is about listening as much as it is about sharing opinion, so that we can learn from one another and how to deal with the challenges. No one person, no one nation has the right answers, but collectively we can work together and move forward and bring some solutions to these challenges. Thank you.
Thank you. The floor is now open for questions.
Ron Shaw, CTV Atlantic. You mentioned Paris, but now we have Mali to think about as well.
Yes.
What else are you anticipating as the days wear on?
Well, this is one of the things we need to be. It's not about anticipating, and this is in this forum is where we can actually learn about how can we predict, do our predictive analysis better, look at the subtle indicators early on so that we can be ready for attacks like this. But more importantly, also look at preventing these attacks. And this is what the most recent attack in Mali also reminds us. There's going to have some people who are here that I'm looking forward to listening to, and I have a lot of questions. And so that's what we need to look at is how do we prevent attacks like this from happening in the first place.
Mr. Minister, Steve Putticum from CBC. I've been asked to ask you if you know if Canadian Forces medical doctors and personnel are in fact being deployed to the Middle East to do medical checks on refugees currently?
Right now, we are looking at deep into the planning stages of this. We're looking at all our options. Our medical personnel will play a key role, and we'll have more to give you in the coming days.
But they're not there yet.
Sorry?
The medical personnel are not in the camps yet.
No, we're still in the planning stages for it.
Okay. And they also asked me if you will forgive me. They want to know if out of Ottawa, when you do the security checks, what happens if one doesn't pass? What do you do?
Well, first of all, we also look at what we're trying to do here. Keep in mind, we're looking at bringing the most vulnerable to Canada, and we're talking about families. And so we want to make sure that the criteria that we put out, and working very closely with the UNHCR, that we're going to be selecting the most vulnerable, and that's the key component to it.
Over here.
With Global News. Sir, today Global News will be releasing a new Ipsos poll that says the majority of Canadians think that we should continue the airstrikes against ISIS. So this is a two-part question, sir, if you don't mind. 68% would support continued airstrikes, and the government has announced that it was going to stop that. First of all, your reaction to what the majority of Canadians support, and also a number of Canadians reject the government plan for bringing in or making the commitment to bring in 25,000 Syrian refugees by the end of the year. And I'd like to get your reaction to both of those, please.
No, in terms of our mandate has been clear, and our Prime Minister has been very clear on this. But we're very mindful of our responsibility with the coalition, and the decision that we do make for this is going to be, we will do it in a responsible manner. But also, we want to keep in mind is we are doing a readjustment, making sure that the contribution that we do provide is going to have a meaningful impact. And this is not a one-step solution to this problem. And again, that's what this forum is about. We need to look at the entire problem set. We don't fight alone. We don't work alone. And we work as part of a coalition. And when we understand the problem set, each nation has different skill sets to bring to the table. And we will be offering up our skill sets that's going to bring the fight to the Taliban, and also looking for more of a long-term solution as well. In terms of the refugees, I want to bring back to a conversation that I had most recently with the ambassador from France, and he stated that he was happy to hear that Canada is doing its part. This crisis is not just about a humanitarian project. This also sends a great message to ISIS, so that you might create this environment for us, but we will not let you take advantage of this. By doing our part for this, we are actually hitting ISIS in a different way as well, which we know from our experience in Afghanistan.
Steve?
Steve Chase, Globe and Mail. I have two questions. One's a follow-up on my colleague here. This isn't the first poll that showed a majority of Canadians have concerns about refugees. So the two-part question is, one, what do you say to Canadians who are concerned or oppose the plan to bring refugees in this volume this quickly? Mm-hmm. And secondly, you mentioned earlier you have questions you want to answer to this forum. What are those questions?
When it comes to the refugees, first, we've always stated very clearly that we're going to make sure that the security and health considerations are at the forefront. And I also just want to remind people, when it comes to refugees, they're not fleeing poverty, they're fleeing war. And we will do this in a manner that takes Canadian security, is going to be the top priority for this, and it'll be done in a responsible manner. And sorry, your second question?
You said earlier that you have questions you want to answer at this forum. Mm-hmm. You come to this forum with questions. Mm-hmm. What are those questions?
For me, and it's the questions are always the same, really. How can we do things better? How do we look at the current problems that we face immediately? But we also got to look at what are the indicators? Are there similar indicators to these problems that are occurring? So that can we identify these indicators for future problems as well? So when they do pop up, that we can identify them early and deal with them at the early stages. So that's what I'll be looking for.
A question for Mr. Van der Prey.
Question for Mr. Van der Prey. What do you hope this conference will, this forum will do in terms of grappling with these issues that we've just been discussing?
Well, to be perfectly honest, I've been doing this now for 7 years, and I actually can't answer the question better than Canada's Minister of National Defence. We are here to listen from each other, listen to each other, project ideas, and walk away so decision makers have very smart options going forward. And that's really the nature of this. This is not a forum for delivering speeches. This is a forum for listening. And as you'll see at the forum, if you've been here before, you've seen it. If you're here for the first time, you'll see it for the first time. Very senior people are here taking notes and listening. And that's really the atmosphere that we create here in Halifax. And it's really an opportunity, so when there are disagreements, to understand the disagreements and understand new ideas. I don't think anybody at the forum is underestimating the threat from Islamic State, but to understand the different approaches and the different ideas for defeating it.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Since you're taking so many, I'm curious. They're curious here in Nova Scotia because here in the Atlantic Canada, they're very much in favor of bringing refugees in. In fact, they opened up the 211 social services line here in Nova Scotia, and hundreds upon hundreds of people have offered everything from homes to kitchen cabinets to help the refugees. People here want to know, are you going to open the bases here to refugees? We've heard about Quebec, Ontario, perhaps Alberta, but there's 3 or 4 bases in Atlantic Canada that are wondering, Mr. Minister, we're open for business. Are you going to let us help?
No, you know what, the Canadians' hospitality and compassion is second to none, and it's nice to hear the warm sense of feeling that you get, and I think all the participants for this conference will feel that warmth. And with regarding into the bases, I'll let the Chief of Defense Staff answer those questions, exactly the details of how things are going to happen at the right time. But also, I would like to also mention when it comes to refugees, there's a gentleman who I know very well. I won't use his name. He goes that when I was a refugee, came from Uganda, and he goes, no other country would take me but Canada. And I arrived at the airport. Someone there was there to meet me. They took me to a place. They fed me. I got to go to school. The guy, he's a multimillionaire. He has done more for charities now. So I want to remind people again is they're not fleeing poverty. They're fleeing war. The people are coming with a phenomenal skill set, and the people that do resettle in this area are going to be contributors to our economy. And who knows, the children of the people who are going to coming and how they're going to interact with the social fabric of society and the contributions that they're going to have. And this gentleman that I'm talking about, he makes it a point to not just assist charities, but also assist the people in the Canadian Armed Forces as well.
Thank you. That concludes our question and answer period.